Let's talk about the true cost of home ownership. So many times I talk to people who have never owned a home and they're renting and they're like, Jenny, we're afraid to make that step into buying a house because if we buy a house, all of a sudden we're responsible for everything to do with the house. Where in a rental, if something goes wrong, we pick up the phone and call the landlord. And listen, that is true. But they have blown it out of proportion to what normally happens. So let's talk about home ownership and all of its glory and its blemishes. So yes, you are responsible for when things go wrong with the house. However, I want you to think about if you've been renting, how many times in the last, let's say 2 years, have you actually called the landlord because something tore up in the house? And then if it was something that tore up, how major was it? So like here's an example. Maybe your HVAC went out and you had to call the landlord because it froze up and they had to get that replaced. Okay, that's a major thing. So depending on what size of house and all that kind of stuff, that's going to be, let's say $5,000 and up. So that would happen occasionally, not often. Like I've been buying and living in houses since I was about, let's say 25, so 25 years. And our house that we're in now, we had to replace the HVAC unit. And that is the only house we've ever had to replace the HVAC system. So that doesn't happen all the time. Same thing with roofs. Like we've lived in houses and yes, we've had a roof replaced, but not every year and not every time because most roofs last 20 to 30 years. So when you're buying that house, if your home inspector says it's probably good for another 10 or 15 years and you know you're only planning to be there a couple of years, it's probably not going to be an issue. It could, but I don't want you missing out on home ownership because you're thinking all this stuff is going to happen every single year, all the time. Now, let's talk about property taxes because this one is one you do want to pay attention to. So when you buy that house, the way it's set up is your payment, it's principal and interest. Those can't change. So let's say your principal and interest payment is $1,200 a month to the mortgage company. It's not going to change for the life of the loan, 30 years, unless you do something where you call them and you want it lowered or something, it's staying the same. Your property insurance can go up. And listen, here recently, they have gone up what we consider quite a bit. So like at my house, the property taxes have gone up about $100 a month on one of our rental house. So it's a small house. And then on our primary house, those taxes have gone up about $300 a month. So that means our payment did. So yes, you do have to factor that in because there's nothing you can do about that. When property taxes go up, your taxes are going to go up. Your payment will go up. Now, the other one is homeowner's insurance. I'm going to tell you, this one's killing me because homeowner's insurance, when you first get it, it seems like the next year it shoots through the roof. So to me, it's kind of like car insurance. You have to shop around. You have to call and get some quotes from different companies. But home ownership builds wealth in a way that rentals typically won't. Now, renting can be good for some people. Renting is great if you know you're only going to be at this job for a year. I would never advise you to buy a house if you knew you were taking a job and you were going to be transferred in a year. But I want you to weigh the cost of, is it fear or is it fact? Because sometimes the fears are what stops us from taking the next step. And let's talk about the facts. If you have questions about this, give me a call.